You'd expect to see stethoscopes and thermometers in a doctor's office. I never saw any of those, but I did see banks of telephone headsets. My diagnosis, we're gonna have to run some tests. Hey, how you doing? This is the main office of Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors. How come you guys are hiding? Or is this the main office of Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors? Hey, Doc, will you answer some questions for me? You guys sure act awfully suspicious. Or maybe this is their main office. Well, it says here that this is the registered office of Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors. Or is this the company headquarters? I've spent the last 6 months traveling to Portage, Michigan, to Flint, to Troy, investigating a fishy medical outfit. Why are you hiding your face, Doc? You are a doctor, aren't you? I'm a doctor. Well, what kind of doctor holds a piece of paper over his face? Come on, fill me in. Doctors who are making house calls. And you gave them your Medicare number and your Social Security number?
Yep.
And that made you a little nervous?
Well, yeah.
They didn't give me any type of information where I could reach them at after that.
Yep, they were getting numbers, but not leaving any. And there sure didn't seem to be a lot of doctoring going on.
They didn't even ask to see my mom, didn't nothing.
This story might make you sick, but don't worry, I've got the cure.
Who are you?
Gary looks like a used car salesman. That's because Gary is a used car salesman.
I don't have any experience in the medical field, and all of a sudden I'm coming in opening up doctor's offices.
Gary says he left the lot after an urgent offer to work at an urgent care clinic. His boss? You were told he was from Saudi Arabia.
Right, and he had a brother who was a wealthy sheik.
This man.
I'm not sure if he's a doctor. He claims to be a doctor. He goes by the name of Dr. Abraham.
He never showed you a license.
No, he was cold to me.
Chase worked there too, and yes, Chase too was recruited from a used car lot.
Chase, you're coming in on ground zero, right? So, they're going to open up, 50 offices in the state of Michigan, and there's going to be a lot of money for everybody.
The business in this office is called AZ Medical. It's supposed to be a walk-in clinic, but the doors were always locked. Women dressed in medical garb sometimes went inside, but quickly bolted the doors behind them. After months of watching the place, we never saw a single patient. Gary explains.
What they were doing was telemarketing to elderly people that were homebound for in-home doctor's visits.
That, according to Gary and Chase, is the real business at this office, selling a supposed service called Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors. Gary says Doc Abraham told him their main office in Portage, Michigan, near Kalamazoo, had been bringing in big money.
1.6.
$1.6 million last year?
Last year, out of the Portage office.
Gary and Chase were supposed to use their used car sales experience to talk seniors into signing up for a house call.
The leads we were getting from were people that were over the age of 70 years of age or whatever that are either on Medicare or Medicaid.
Here's a copy of the script. Hello, my name is blank. I'm calling from Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors. How are you today? Great. We offer free doctor visits by board-certified doctors in the privacy of your own home for people who have medical and mobility problems. Your home is your doctor's office. They are on call 7 days a week, 24 hours per day, and Medicare covers the entire cost 100%. If the senior took the bait, this doctor, a man named Rafat Shaheda, would pay them a visit.
Medicare would pick up the whole tab.
Stanley says Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors kept calling him.
3, maybe 4. Could have been 4 times, I'm not sure.
And the guy was pretty persistent?
Yeah, it was kind of really persistent because I had Medicare and all that.
But when Dr. Shaheda and his assistant arrived, there was no medicine practice. Stanley says it was just a grilling session to get him to give up his personal information. Did you take it as a sales pitch?
Almost, that's what I took it as, a sales pitch.
Stanley didn't budge. Margaret is another story. And you gave them your Medicare number and your Social Security number?
Yep.
Margaret was visited by Dr. Shaheda and his assistant too. You were a little suspicious of them?
Well, after they left, I was, but not while they were here. Just when I was signing that paper, I kind of figured maybe I shouldn't sign this, but I signed it anyway.
After pricking her finger and taking her blood pressure, the house call was over. He was supposed to be the doctor?
I guess.
Did he leave you any paperwork?
Nothing.
Diane says she gave the visiting doctor both her and her mother's Medicare numbers during a house call. But she says Dr. Shaheda never examined her or her mother, who has a bad foot.
I figured that you would at least look at it, but he never seen my mother's face.
The patients seem confused, and for good reason. Something sure ain't right here. For instance, they've got a company card that lists both AZ Medical and Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors, but it's got an out-of-state plate. And that phone number? It's disconnected.
You have reached a number that is no longer in service.
Remember, Gary and Chase worked at this Troy office. It's listed on this flyer as the business address of both Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors and AZ Medical. But this is sure confusing because I found this state paperwork and the address isn't the Troy office, it's this Rochester Hills home. And Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors isn't registered at either the Troy or the Portage office. According to the state paperwork, it's registered in Flint. Well, let's go on up there and take a look. Hello. Well, this doesn't look like a doctor's office, and it's not. They tell me inside they never heard of Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors or the person who registered the business at this address, Mohammed Abraham. You guys know who Mohammed Abraham is? Apparently, no one at the state medical board does either, because I can't find a doctor named Mohammed Abraham or Abraham Mohammed or any of the other names it appears he's used over the years. Do you think he's a doctor?
No. And I was told by the doctor that we had there, Dr. Sheeta, that he's not a doctor. But as I told you before, when I would call him, I'd call him Mr. Abraham, Mr. Abraham. I did it on purpose, and then one time he did correct me and says, no, it's Dr. Abraham.
Joe was hired by Dr. Abraham to do some computer work. Unlike Gary and Chase, Joe actually has a little experience working in a doctor's office.
You can't just hire doctors, and he's wanting to hire doctors off of Craigslist, and then he asked me if I knew any doctor, and I'm not a doctor, I can't hire a doctor, so that's when it started rolling in my brain. Something's not making sense here.
It sure isn't. Hiring doctors off Craigslist? Wonder if that's where Abraham found Dr. Shaheda, the guy making the house calls. Time for me to make my own house call. I want to talk to you about your business here.
What kind of business?
This business you have here. Why are you hiding your face, Doc?
I'm sorry.
You are a doctor, aren't you?
I'm a doctor, but I can't.
Well, what's going on in this business here, doctor? Well, what kind of doctor holds a piece of paper over his face? Come on, fill me in. Oh, come on, man. Dr. Abraham. Come on, open the door. Why don't you talk to me? The next day, I try again, this time with Dr. Shaheda. Can you give me a couple of minutes here? Dr. Shaheda?
No, sir.
Could you answer me some questions? Hey, Doc, will you answer some questions for me? You guys sure act awfully suspicious. Hey, doctor, come on, man. We went through this yesterday with the other guy, Dr. Shaheda. Are you guys doing something that's illegal? Are you doing something that's wrong? Maybe there's an explanation for all this, and maybe they'll have it for me here at the Portage office of Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors. Hey, how you doing? Well, that's not the reaction I would have expected from a medical staff. And what kind of doctor's office is this? They don't want you to come in. Come talk to me, buddy.
Excuse me, if you guys don't leave, I will be forced to call the police.
Who are you?
Will you please leave?
Yeah, I'll leave, but who are you?
Very much.
This place doesn't look like a doctor's office. It looks like a telephone boiler room. And these people look like telemarketers who are doing their best to hide from me. There's no doctors or patients here, but I got plenty of patience. And after waiting outside for an hour, this guy finally comes out with his lawyer's phone number.
We have no comments. If you have any questions, you give him a call.
Yeah, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Hey, man. Who are you? Come on, buddy, what's your name? This is supposed to be a doctor's office, right? Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors, right? Is there a doctor in there? What are you guys doing? Why don't you just fill me in? According to the state, Dr. Shaheda is a licensed doctor. Mohammed Abraham is not a licensed medical doctor in Michigan. Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctors is not a state licensed or federally certified medical facility. AZ Medical is listed with the state as a clinical laboratory, and they are able to bill the government for federal services. The state tells me the person of record with that business is Abraham Mohammed, which of course is just a reversal of the name Mohammed Abraham. I was unable to find out if there was any monkey business with the patient billing. And in fact, none of the seniors we talked to believe they were billed for these visits. But certainly something's up here. Just yesterday, my cameraman saw one of the employees carrying boxes out of the Troy office and loading them into her car. Gary sued Mohammed Abraham for back pay and says a settlement was reached. As for Mid-Michigan Home Visiting Doctor's attorney, I spoke to him once over the summer and he hung up on me. I called him again Friday. He has not returned my call.